Hey, hello everyone, my name is Carlos Javier Moreno Mejia. I'm here at the University of El Salvador because I'm recording a video for the subject of English linguistics. And today I'll be talking about what is inside the chapter number 2 of the book The History of Language, written by George Yule. This chapter is called Animals and Human Language. What is inside this chapter, you are maybe asking yourselves? Well, first, there's a question at the beginning of the chapter which says most like this: is it possible that a creature or an animal may learn to communicate with humans by only using language? Well, I was thinking about this question, and probably the answer is that they can't communicate with human beings, because language is something that is a characteristic which is proper only for human beings. Language is something that is only for humans. Also, they can't use language because they don't have the physical structures, and they can't vocalize. They can create thoughts or ideas to be spoken. Also, this chapter mentions about that language includes some features that make language as something unique, as an unique treasure that the human beings have. And the first characteristic is that in language there is something called reflexivity. Reflexivity is that human beings can reflect about what they have said in the past. They can think about events that happened in the past. Also, we have this concept, displacement. Well, displacement is very related with the meaning of reflexivity, but in this case, displacement means that human beings can think and talk about things that happened in the past, in the present, in the future, or also they can talk and think about things that probably they don't exist or are part of the imagination. Okay, so there's another characteristic of the uniqueness of language, and it's called arbitrariness. Arbitrariness means that there is not a necessary connection between the word and the meaning. In other words, we don't care about the specific word. We are not taking interest about why this thing is called in this way. We don't care about the words. Another characteristic is the cultural transmission. This means that not only language, but also cultural aspects are passed from generation to generation. This means that language and cultural aspects are very tight and related to each other. The culture is not as the genes that are hereditary. Also, we have the last characteristic, which is the duality. Duality means that with a few set of letters of the vocabulary, for example, 5 vowels and 3-4 consonants, human beings are capable of creating, well, a large group of words, and all of them with not the same meaning. Well, now I would like to talk about animals, which is the other part of the chapter. In the chapter, it is mentioning about there were several experiments realized with a very interesting species, which is the chimpanzees. These chimpanzees were put into experiments in order to see if animals can develop language. And the first experiment from 1930 was with a very young chimpanzee, which was called Gua. Okay, so now let's talk about animals. Many experiments have been developed by researchers with animals, specifically with chimpanzees, in order to see if animals can create or produce any sign of language. And the first experiment that I would like to talk about is with this chimpanzee called Wa. Wa was raised with a child, a very young baby, and with the pass of the time, both of them were able to understand more than 100 words. Just Wa was understanding the language just as this young baby. Also, there's experiment with chimpanzee Big. Big was put in 5 years to listen to many expressions that a regular baby would listen. After 5 years of only listening English, she was also able to understand and maybe to produce some expressions or sing simple words. Also, we have the experiment made with a chimpanzee Washoe, that she, in a normal way or in a regular way, she practiced or she was taught to learn the American Sign Language, which is very similar as a human language. After maybe learning this American Sign Language, she was able to produce not only words but also sentences. Also, we have the chimpanzee Sarah. With Sarah, she used a set of plastic shapes, and these plastic shapes were similar to words. So if she had a necessity, she had to put these words to form sentences, and she would receive whatever she wanted, wherever she was asking. And finally, we have the experiment with Lana. Lana did something very similar to what Sarah did, but Lana was not using a set of plastic shapes. She was using a set of digital shapes, and the experiment was very similar to Sarah. After finishing these experiments, they both were able to ask whatever they wanted by putting words into sentences. As you can see, you probably would think that they were having signs of language. They were communicating with us. Yeah, they were communicating with us, but they weren't understanding the language. They weren't producing language. The only thing that they were doing was giving a response to the stimulus. This is something which is called behaviorism. They didn't understand the meaning of the words. They didn't understand what they were doing. They were just asking, probably because for their necessities. They didn't understand, as I already mentioned before. So this was all that the chapter included. The first part was mostly about the properties of human language, and the second part was specifically only about the experiments with chimpanzees. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.